This was our Prime Minister also, just before last election, he imagined that India should be a big superpower, developed India, correct? What do you mean by developed India? What is your thinking of a developed society? Any of you have gone to America, how many of you have gone? Please raise your hands. कोई विदेश गया है आपसे और सब गांव वाले हैं? What do you think the difference between America and India? Even those who have gone to Singapore, क्या देखा है? उधर का लाइफ, इधर का लाइफ में क्या फर्क है? You will find classrooms are air conditioned, not like this. Seats are much better, not like this. Auditorium is fantastic, 5-star hotel, not like this. Students are much better dressed, not like this. Everybody comes in a car, not by bicycle. Everybody has at the weekend they go to some resort and enjoy. Like here, last night I arrived at 12 o'clock in the night. I find some people sleeping in the lab. Of course, I'm not at midnight. And you will not get dhabas like here. Chai place a glass wala chai can't be respected. And so. Today, our per capita income in India is just $2,500 per person per year. Okay. And to be India, to be a developed India, this money has to grow 8 times. That means we should get at least $21,664 per person per year. Then you people will not go to America. Reverse revenue. That means the economy has to grow how many times?
8 times.
Today our economy is just below $4 trillion. Our GDP. And China is how much? 80. Very good. And America?
20.
कल का न्यूज़ है ये सब. America is going to be $52 trillion. आप लोग कुछ देखते हो कि नहीं? How 52? Because it's going to occupy Ukraine, and Ukraine has roughly $30+ trillion of raw materials. America occupied. This plus America GDP total will become $52 trillion. कल का न्यूज़ है सब. I was working at Delhi Airport. Okay, that is what it is. So the dream of studying, not studying, the dream of the nation should be a developed India means we are going to cross $30 trillion. And for what is our population today? 1.4 billion. And our population is not steady, is growing. Unlike most of the economies, including China, which has started decline. And we are going to be 1.7 billion population just 20 years down the line. I just asked how old are you because of this reason. By the time most of you will reach 40 years old, our population will become 1.7 billion. And in this 20 years down the line, 2047, Prime Minister of India has envisioned India to be a developed India with $35 trillion. Right? And ये किसका responsibility है? आप लोग ऐसे नहीं बोला. I started with the word how good I am. This responsibility is given to you people, not us, because he knows these guys will be at retiring board to go. Right? 2047, while this responsibility of large economic growth is put on the shoulder of these young people, that will be huge growth. And you all know, GDP growth is very much linked to what? One single factor, energy growth. Those countries which are energy rich are only rich, and those which are energy poor are poor. China's per capita energy consumption today is 4 times ours. Why? Their GDP is 4 times. So their energy consumption is, America would have got air conditioner. Right? It is simple, everywhere. You will not be coming by bicycle, you will also coming by cars like Africa. In America, 90% America go by flights. And in India, 90% Indians, probably much more, are waiting to catch a flight. How many? 90% plus Indians are waiting to catch a flight. And whose responsibility it is? You are the facilitator all this. In America and Europe, almost every individual has a one or two cars. And in India, 90% Indians are able to have a car. So energy is the most crucial thing to support this people. Very good. Today we consume roughly 10,000 billion units of energy. Total electricity, not electricity alone. How much it is? Please remember this number. How much it is?
10,000 billion.
And how much China consumes?
40,000.
Very good, straight number. 40,000 billion. Just that comparing. China, India, 1.4 billion, 1.4 billion. We consume 10,000 billion units, they consume 40,000 billion units. Our GDP just 4 trillion, below 4 trillion, and there is already 17 plus. So it is all linked. Even with 10,000 billion units of energy, the issue of climate change has come, which is again a burden on you people. Why? Because the Earth's temperature is growing, right? And because of what? Greenhouse gases emission. And you all know what is the root cause of greenhouse gases emission? It's carbon dioxide, dioxide, and all those related gases. And today, 90% of our energy comes from what? By burning coal, oil, and gas. And we are all committed that we have to save the planet Earth. If the Earth doesn't survive, what is the meaning of me in developed India? रहेगा तो developed India होगा, नहीं रहेगा तो क्या developed India? And what is the temperature limit for the Earth to bear that? It's only 2 degrees Celsius. We say the Earth's temperature under any circumstances should not go beyond 2 degrees Celsius. Why? Because it goes much more than 2 degrees Celsius, 3-4 degrees Celsius. The biggest event going to happen is the Arctic ice melt. If the Arctic ice melts, there are several billion tons of CO2 under the Arctic ice. They will just come out. You don't have to burn again fossil gases, fossil fuels to produce greenhouse gases. And if these gases come, CO2 primarily, it will go to around our and beyond 2 degrees Celsius, the habitats of Earth cannot go. So it's going to be a disaster. How much time the Earth is having to reach 2 degrees Celsius? Today, across the world, globally, we emit roughly 60 billion tons equivalent of CO2. How much? Remember this. And to cross 2 degrees Celsius, Mother Earth can accommodate only 1150 to 1300 billion tons. If we divide that by 60, how many years left?
20.
20 years. So 20 is a beautiful number. 20, you will become developed India, $35 trillion. 20 years down the line, Earth may cross 2 degrees Celsius. 20 years down the line, your GDP has to grow, and so much energy has to be produced, at least 4 times of today's to support the grid. ये फिर किसका जिम्मेदारी है? आप लोगों का. Because you will be in the driving seat 20 years down the line. NISER will be looking at you. Right? That's why this lecture is very good. So 10,000 billion units, we have to first decarbon. Means remove the coal, oil and gas part. And also we need to add at least 20 to 30,000 billion units of energy to support the GDP growth of 35. That also without coal, oil and gas. Correct? So what is the option left to us? Yes, all of you are science students. If I remove coal, oil and gas, what option I have left?
Nuclear.
I am the first person who will say, we have solar, we have wind, we have hydro, correct? So, solar, wind and hydro, it's not created by anyone. It's given by God. How much solar installation falls on NISER? It is only given by God. I cannot create today double the solar energy. I cannot create double the wind speed today. It's all God has given. Nature has given. So what is the potential of that for India? कितना है देश में है? So ministries are calculated. The maximum potential of renewables in this country, which includes solar, wind, and hydro, is hardly 4,000 billion. How much?
4,000 billion.
And today we consume how much? 10,000. 30% of today's total energy can come only from renewables. Even 100% utilization, including solar rooftops, जो भी आप करो, wind जहाँ भी लगाना है लगा दो, कितना मिलेगा? 30% of today's energy. So all of you are scientists, आप लोग सोचते होंगे सोलर PV efficiency डबल करवा देंगे, एडवांस सोलर सेल बनाएंगे, रोज जो पेंट का उसका जो हाइट मास्क हाइट बढ़ा देंगे, बेटर विंड टरबाइन बनाएंगे, so this efficiency may get double assumed. So 4,000 will become 8,000 or 10,000. What about my development? What will take me to 35 trillion? It's a huge electricity part. What will that come from? Nothing. Right? And then if I say huge amount of the energy basket has to come from nuclear, the biggest question is, that is, we are all afraid of. If I say I want to build a nuclear reactor in NISER, all of you say next day please back it. आप लोग इधर नहीं रहने वाला, क्यों? इधर रेडिएशन आएगा, तो क्या होगा? हमको कैंसर हो जाएगा, फिर क्या होगा? हम लोग मर जाएंगे, correct? Everybody says this is the perception. If nobody says it is not correct, please raise the hand. Why you don't want a nuclear reactor? This is the whole, every common, not only Indian, I have visited around the globe. Everybody's perception is nuclear means radiation, radiation means cancer, cancer means. But cancer होने से कौन सा दवाई दिया जाता है? Somebody is having cancer, what he is given? And that is intense radiation. That time neither the patient nor the relatives think, अरे इसको रेडिएशन दे तो फिर तो बहुत रहा है, इसको कैंसर हो जाए, इसको मर जाए, फिर इसको रेडिएशन क्यों दिया जाए? You not think ये बहुत बड़ा है, कुछ तो बरमाल है इसमें, correct? Have you all heard of? Have you asked the doctor? हमने सुना है रेडिएशन से कैंसर होता है, फिर कैंसर होने से रेडिएशन कैसे दिया जाता है? You are injecting in the blood, full body, you see all your cells are seeing intense radiation dose. बहुत बड़ा कुछ तो बर्बाद है, right? So in one way, you are giving the responsibility to develop India with at least 3 to 4 times of today's energy, and according to the full mathematics, except nuclear or atomic energy, you cannot transform India. It's not it. You do your own mathematics also after doing this class. To find without nuclear, it's not possible. But with nuclear atmosphere, which looks like this man was telling me, yes, the radiation is the cancer cure होता है. तो radiation cancer कैसे हो जाता है? लोग मर जाते हैं. Then I met a really intense study. We just will present here next 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Okay? The title of the story is The Origin Fear of Radiation. And like you, everyone may believe this guy is a nuclear scientist. He has come all the way from Bombay to somewhat brainwash his talks so that हम लोग वो चेंज कर देंगे ये रेडिएशन से खतरा नहीं सोचे इसलिए every statement I put is referred to the output of the research journal. So here more than 400 research articles I have referred to books. So each statement I do or each slide I show here is from the research publication output, not from mine. It's available in the open document. Okay? And nowhere, please remember, anywhere I've never made my own personal statement. At the end, what Professor Amarendra said, you have to judge yourself. What is the truth? What is radiation? We all know. Here, is there radiation here? Whether it's inside, outside, anywhere, radiation is a constant compulsion of our life. ऐसे दुनिया में कोई एक जगह नहीं है हम बोलेंगे कि इसमें रेडिएशन है नहीं. What is radiation? आप लोग तो साइंस वाला है, जस्ट आप लोग का रिवीजन के लिए आंसर. It is basically an energy. Radiation is basically a form of energy, and it's emitted from a source. But different types of radiation, they vary with frequency and wavelength. There is a difference between long wavelength and short wavelength and high frequency. And those which you are concerned today are basically high frequency and short wavelength, which we say as ionizing radiation. जिसकी सब दुनिया डरता है. How radiation is measured? It's measured by a unit called sievert. One sievert is a big number. It's basically the energy which is deposited on 1 kg of human cell of 1 joule of energy. So 1 joule of energy which is deposited on 1 kg of the human cell. So 1 sievert, as I said, is a big number. Normally it is expressed as millisievert. It's 1,000 of a sievert. You all know about the discovery of the ionizing radiation. Mendeleev was fast when he made the periodic table, 19th century. Next, the biggest discovery, I would say, Röntgen, who discovered X-rays. And this led to further discoveries in the properties of ionizing radiation and the possibility of using this radiation in medicine. That was the first thing, because historically, the use of radiation, from beginning it was targeted to be used in medicine. 1896, Becquerel announced discovery of radioactivity. 2 years down the line, you all know, two famous scientists, Curie and Curie, in Paris reported discovery of new element which they called as polonium. The term radioactive appeared in a scientific paper for the first time, and uranic rays were renamed as Becquerel rays. Rutherford classified these rays as alpha, beta, and gamma. Then the biggest history, especially on fission, happened by Enrico Fermi, who demonstrated the existence of new radioisotopes produced because of the neutron radiation. 1938, three big scientists from Germany, Meitner, Hahn, and Strassmann, were the first to discover the nuclear fission. 4 years down the line, this is the biggest discovery in the history of fission. Fermi and his colleagues demonstrated the first self-sustaining chain reaction at University of Chicago, which is popularly known as Chicago Fire. This is the time when the World War was going on, so Second World War. So the American president decided to use this self-sustaining chain reaction for making of the atomic weapons. So you all know the nuclear weapons program. Soon after the self-sustaining chain reaction was discovered, the first use was not the nuclear power application. It was used for the nuclear weapons. So United States were the first in the world to develop the nuclear fission bombs. And with a Professor Oppenheimer, he was the wartime head of Los Alamos Laboratory. The Manhattan Project started, and that led to the making of the atom bomb. And some of you might have seen the cinema Oppenheimer, which came last year. And Oppenheimer, until now, is also treated as the father of atom bomb. One atom bomb was dropped in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, which is known as Little Boy. 3 days later, on August 9, another atom bomb called Fat Man was dropped in Nagasaki. The explosions, were really very huge, not only damaged the two cities, killing several lakhs of people, and also really shattered the entire globe, including the scientists. So atom bombs caused loss of many lives. In fact, 200,000 people died immediately. But as you know, those days there was no radiation measuring devices. And nobody knew in Japan who has received how much dose. So, if I want to ask you, what is the risk of radiation? Is there any experiment that has been done afterwards? I'll say no, zero. Nobody in the world, no humans, I would say, has been exposed to atomic radiation and to evaluate or quantify that this is the damage to the human body as a function of the radiation dose. Never it. Only once it has happened in the entire history of human beings, that is only Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But there was no measuring device. So nobody knew who has received how much radiation. So extensive studies were carried out by Radiation Effects Research Foundation, or the RERF, and Atom Bomb Casualties Commission on dosimetry. It took almost 50 years, let me tell you, to establish or to find out an effective and correct dosimeter. Most of the scientists in Japan and America worked almost 50 years to develop that. America has a desert called the Nevada Desert. It's basically a site in America where all sorts of defense testing is done. All atom bombs, even atomic weapons are tested. What America did, they again tested those two atom bombs in Nevada Desert, okay, which was dropped in Japan. And they started measuring the radiation dose from the epicenter as a distance, a function of distance. And then they tried to correlate the survivors in Japan with the dose, finding out that what could happen to the life of the survivor of Japanese if assuming they have received this first dose. So this study America did. As you know, Japan is the only country in the world which has sustained a nuclear attack. And as I said, almost 2 lakh people died in the year. But what is there in an atom bomb? What is there? 35% of the energy of the atom bomb comes from heat and light, which is the same as any other explosive. 50% comes as pressure wave or blast energy. So 85% of the energy from an atom bomb is the same as any other bomb. And probably these 200,000 people who died because of the intense heat and light and the pressure wave or shock waves which were produced. Only 15% of atom bomb, the energy of the atom bomb, is from radiation. How much? Only 15%. And out of that, 5% comes immediately and 10% comes delayed. Delayed means very much afterwards. So these 200,000 people, not a single person might have died because of atomic radiation. But the world, if I ask all of you, you will all think that they have died because of atomic. Correct? This nobody in the world tries to predict it. That 85% energy of atom bomb is the same as any other bomb. Only 5% is prompt, the radiation, and 10% is very much delayed. This is a beautiful analysis. This shows the statistical analysis of the Japanese atomic bomb survival as a function of the dose. I have put in the red boxes 2 things. One is the death risk because of the leukemia and death risk because of the solid cancers. And what is found? If the dose is up to 200 millisievert, please remember this number. The dose is below 200 millisievert. The risk was close to 0 or negative. What do you mean by 0 or negative? This is compared as a function of those who are never exposed to radiation in Japan because of this atom bomb. So 0 means there is no difference of the death of the survivors of Japanese who are exposed to radiation and those who are never exposed to radiation. Negative means they have lived longer and they had lesser risk of dying because of cancer. This is the meaning of negative risk. So what is found, up to 100 to 200 millisievert dose which the Japanese people receive, they had negative risk means they are found to live longer and they had a lesser chance of dying because of cancer as compared to normal Japanese people. In fact, today many people in Japan, in the world, people feel that why Japanese people are living longer. This could be one of the reasons, because they are exposed to radiation, especially remember this is number 200. When you go for an X-ray, how much radiation you get? It's 2 millisievert. But doctor puts a red light. You be careful about radiation. When you go for a CT scan, how much you get? 8 to 10 millisievert. When you go for a full body CT scan, how much you get? 10 to 12 millisievert. And I think 200 millisievert. The risk was negative. And this is never taught to any person in the world. There are beautiful stories now I'm going to tell you. Low dose radiation is up to 200, let's assume. Let's put this in the bracket of low dose radiation. This is found to extend the survival lifespan of Japanese and reduce their cancer mortality. Of course, those people who got very high radiation, which we say lethal, they died and they had a higher risk of death due to cancer. But not every radiation dose. There are beautiful stories. One gentleman called Yamaguchi, he was living in Hiroshima when the first atom bomb was dropped. Then he moved to Nagasaki with some of his friends when the second bomb was dropped. So all his friends died. He alone survived, and he died at the age of 93. He was exposed to two bombs, and he survived till 93. Another person called Suboi, survivor of the Hiroshima bombing, was just 1.2 kilometers from the epicenter of the Hiroshima bombing. He is 93 in 2018, I don't know, he is still there, right? Mori was just 8-year-old, but he injured 2.5 kilometers from the epicenter. After being blown into a river bed from a bridge, he was born in 1937, has lived more than most of the Japanese people did. This beautiful picture you might have seen. What happened when these atom bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? A lot of water vapor was created. And they created a mystical cloud. And when this cloud was going up, it was carrying a lot of radioactive materials, which you say aerosols. Then the cloud, which is called black cloud, it's moved along the Japanese, along the full of Japan. And then within 30 minutes, the rain rained. In fact, because of this cloud, black cloud, we say, almost every Japanese person was exposed to radiation. That would be dense radiation, which until now could not be proven scientifically. It is very difficult to create this cloud. Even though America did the same test at Nevada, they could not form the cloud with nature. Now come to the weapon test programs. You know, during just after the Second World War, the West and East got divided. That is the Cold War period, and these 5 nations, I would say 4 nations basically, they started developing atomic weapons. And there are several thousands of soldiers, technologists, and scientists were involved for making the atom bomb and testing it. What has happened to them? Have they all died because of cancer? Or they were infected by cancer? So this study will tell you. In the United Kingdom, between 1950 and 60, almost 22,000 people were involved in the atomic weapon program. And the study showed no discernible impacts either on mortality or the probability of them developing cancer or any other fatal disease. Even a subsequent 7-year period followed showed that all cases of leukemia, multiple myeloma, with these people were lower as compared to normal unexposed UK participants, UK people. Australians also, who took part in British nuclear experiments in Australia, did not show any evidence of increased cancer mortality. No correlation was found between radiation exposure or cancer or deaths due to cancer. Operation Plumber is the largest, I would say, experiment by the Americans. And especially, as I said, this is conducted by Nevada site. And probably America put the largest number of scientific, technical, as well as soldiers for doing all these tests. Even the people who were involved 53 years down the line, who were exposed to such radiation, they were found they had lower mortality rate than the general American population. In the USSR, the former Russia coalition, former Russian nations, which called USSR, there is a place called semi-platinist. Like ours, we say Pokhran. In Russia, they have semi-platinist. Almost 20,000 people were involved in all these tests. And they exposed to radiation to a huge number, 4,000 millisievert, or 4 sievert. And it was found that none of them had any cardiovascular disease. Now come to the 3 major nuclear accidents. The first one, happened in America because of the 3 Mile Island accident. In nuclear reactor, we have different types of barriers. So there is a containment. So containment, if some poor reactor melts down, the containment doesn't allow the radiation to come out, like you are sitting inside it. So when the reactor fuel melted down, so there was fear that a lot of radioactivity may come to the public in America because of the volatile nature of the aerosol products. But only 0.01% of the radioactive fission products escaped in the environment. In terms of dose, it was found to be hardly 10 curie was the maximum dose which was released to the public, and almost 70 curie of iodine was released in the next 30 days. Until now, in America, at 3 Mile Island, it's found that nobody is having any adverse health effect because of the exposure to radiation. But the governor of Pennsylvania, the then governor, because of the fear when this accident happened, people living within 10 miles, or you can say 16 or 18 kilometer distance, almost 1,44,000 people were asked to evacuate. But until now, the studies showed that the rate of cancer in and around that 3 Mile Island place is insignificant, in spite of the public fear is still there. In Russia, a few years down the line, the biggest nuclear accident, Chernobyl, happened in 1986. The accident was more severe than TMI2. In fact, the amount of radioactivity released was much higher than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atom bombs. How many people died in Chernobyl? Nothing was like the content. There was no containment. The roof was thrown away. Everything went out, even to people living at Greece, which is several, I would say, 1,000 kilometers away. The aerosols reached. So the number of immediate deaths was very small, but because of fear, the Chernobyl administration asked 1,16,000 people to evacuate. And the moment you say evacuation, there is a psychological fear comes. Even if you might have seen in Odisha also, because of the cyclone, the moment government says you have to evacuate, people who have to be evacuated, it's a big stress on them, especially the old people and those who are having pre-existing diseases, and they are susceptible. How much dose in Chernobyl it released? The measurement shows maximum dose is outside the Chernobyl reactor has happened, which is only 100 degrees. Of which one. I said in Japanese study, up to 200 millisievert, the risk was negative or close to 0. In Chernobyl, in spite of such an extreme accident, the dose was hardly 100 millisieverts. In a 2006 BBC report shows that those who have visited the Chernobyl site have found surprise. Instead of wasteland they had expected, they found the wildlife surviving and in some cases thriving. The flora and fauna are shining. How many people really died? When the accident happened, 134 firefighters were engaged and 28 of them died because of the radiation sickness, not because of the ionizing radiation. The 106 people were recovered, but 19 of them died in the next 20 years. These 19 might not be the victims of radiation because the annual death rate in the USSR was already 1%. And 1% of 106 comes to 20, which was more than 19, otherwise they would have died also. During 91 to 2005, more than 6,000 thyroid cancer cases were reported in Chernobyl area. And that was attributed that time they were drinking contaminated milk with iodine 131 and 15 persons died. Had this thyroid cancer would have been a malign one, the expected death was expected to be 2,000 to 3,000 people would have died. So definitely this was not a malign thyroid cancer. And most important, in the Chernobyl area, already there was an increase of the cancer incidence 18 months before the Chernobyl accident happened. This picture I have brought in from a couple of years back, a research outcome of some American scientists who shows that the area has remained abandoned since the Chernobyl exclusion zone. After the Chernobyl accident happened, the human beings were asked to evacuate. What about the animals? They stayed back. What happened to the animals? Did they develop cancer? Did they die? Did they remain there? So this was basically a study from the US group, and it was published a few years back. Even today also morning when I got up, I saw very similar news. The dogs living in Chernobyl have become cancer resistant, which is same as the wolves living in Chernobyl. Humans have not returned, but wildlife such as wolves, horses, roam the wasteland even 35 years after the disaster. And the researchers discovered that the Chernobyl wolves are exposed to more than 11.28 millirem of radiation every day for their entire life. And the researcher, Dr. Lowe, found that the wolves have altered the immune system, similar to cancer patients undergoing radiation. Now you understood why radiation is given to cancer patients. The same thing will happen with the wolves. But more significantly, she also identified specific parts of the animals' genetic information that seem to be resilient to cancer. Probably these wolves will never develop cancer in their entire life. The same thing is there from a very recent study. Today morning when I got up, I saw the dogs living in Chernobyl area have developed very surprisingly and more and vigorously almost similar effects. Now come to Fukushima accident. This happened in 2011, and in this accident 3 persons died, and not because of radiation but because of earthquake and tsunami. And no fatalities until now have been reported in Fukushima accident because of radiation exposure. How much radiation the workers received in Fukushima? 7,800 workers deployed received an average dose of only 7 millisieverts. 30 received dose of 100 millisievert, and which might execute up to even 250 millisievert if the inhaled dose is taken in drug. But similar to earlier accidents, the Prime Minister of Japan, he asked almost 200,000 people to evacuate when the dose was hardly 1 millisievert. He asked so many people to go. And that caused real panic, even deaths, especially to old people and people who are having other sickness. So even the statistical studies show that people who lived in nursing homes of these guys who were evacuated, their deaths were 2.7 times more than the people who stayed back in the Fukushima area. Some of the people didn't evacuate, they stayed back. Their deaths were much, much smaller. And if you look at the dose in the nearby villages, it's hardly a few millisievert, in most of the cases, less than maybe 10 millisievert. So if I just summarize it, the 3 accidents until now, the maximum dose which the public received in case of the worst nuclear accident is hardly a few millisievert. There is no additional risk to life of human beings because of the nuclear reactor accident. Of course, the company loses the plant, there is a huge loss to its families. Most important is the psychological risk against radiation. You see, when the Chernobyl accident happened, even women at Greece, which is 2,000 kilometers away, many pregnant women went for abortion, thinking that their child is going to get cancer in future, because that fear was there. Now I will tell you some beautiful case studies. Taiwan capital is Taipei. So almost 1,700 flats, like you might have seen, the Bhubaneswar builders made apartments. So in Taipei city, such a beautiful apartment, 1,700 flats were built. But they were built with contaminated cobalt-60 material. And almost 10,000 people were living in that apartment for nearly 20 years and exposed to a radiation level of even up to 400 millisievert. Like you people are sitting on the chair, probably the steel may be contaminated with cobalt-60. You don't know. So they lived for 20 years with such a high dose until it was detected. Then there was fear. That what happened to these guys? Whether they are dying because of cancer. It was found that the cancer deaths here was lower than by 3% of the normal capacity people. In India, there is a village called Karangapalli of Kerala, which is the house of India's thorium, the monazite sand. And the background, those radiation is huge because of the presence of thorium. It's of the order of 70 milligram per year, or 70 millisievert per year. Almost 3,85,000 residents were taken. That's what has happened to their body, because they are being exposed to such huge radiation. And it is found that no excess cancer risk of this Kerala village as compared to normal Kerala people. In Brazil, there is the worst ever accident which has happened until now, called the Goiânia accident, which happened in September 1987, when a forgotten radiotherapy source was stolen from an abandoned hospital. Like you have the AIMS, for example, not AIMS, cancer hospital next to you, and sometimes after the source is taken, used, the hospital puts it in their backyard. That is a place for storage, sometimes it's stolen. And when they steal it, a lot of people are exposed, like in Mayapur, for example, in Delhi. So IAEA treats it as one of the world's most or worst radiological accident until now. Almost 1,12,000 people were exposed and examined, and 249 people were found to be contaminated. However, only 4 exposed died, not because of cancer, but because of acute exposure to radiation. the early 1900s, radioactive luminous paint was used to make the face, shining in the dark. In the olden days, we used to wear also watches. I used to wear watch called Rico watch. It is a Swiss watch called Rico. So we used to have also such paints inside the dial. So in the night, if you want to see your time, you can see the dark, which everybody cannot see. So the workers who were employed to paint these dials became contaminated. The alpha-emitting radiation accumulated in their bones, which anticipated to increase the chance of developing bone cancer. Among the 1,339 workers with accumulated dose of less than 10 grade, no cases of bone cancer was found. In Iran, there is a place called Ramsar.
Now there is no class now.
It is having a very high level of radiation, background area, and because of the presence of radium-226 and its products due to sulfur in the hot spring. About 1,000 people live in that village, and they are constantly exposed to a dose of 2.5 to 72 millisieverts. So it is found that neither the mortality rates nor cancer incidence in this village is higher as compared to normal Iranian people. Similarly, in China, there is a place called Yangira, and it is also a high-level radiation area. About 31,000 people were examined between 1970 and 78. The overall mortality rate here was found to be much lesser as compared to normal Chinese people. The mortality due to non-cancer disease was not having any relation to radiation dose. Dr. Dunwich, he used to be engaged in extraction of radium from uranium for 16 months from 1947. The radium was accumulated in his bones, which is even 25 times the legal maximum radium which one can accept. One might assume that he was seriously contaminated. 65 years down the line, he says, I am healthy. Ian Suter used to play in the uranium mines, collecting the uranium rocks. Even he slept with radioactive rocks under his pillow. And on the night table of 1980, 2011, in the year 2011, he called all his childhood friends who also played in the uranium mines. They all were told that you will going to get problems later in life. But Ian found all of them healthy. None of them had got cancer. In fact, his cat had developed an allergy which completely disappeared because of the radiation from the uranium. Leslie Curtis used to wear uranium stone necklace, not gold necklace. He used to wear uranium necklace. And Curtis claims that he never had any cold or upper respiratory tract infection since when she was started wearing this necklace. And he says, I firmly accept that if everyone wears one of these, we'll have a significantly healthier society. 1982, lucky, another question, was the first to conclude that low-dose radiation benefited animal growth, development, health, and longevity. Even he recommends construction of such meeting rooms, lecture halls, next to a nuclear power plant, such that we will have a healthier society. This is the most beautiful side. Buttner, on behalf of the National Geographic, started moving around the world to find out which is the place in the world people live the longest. And he found that there is a city called Ikaria, island called Ikaria, 30 miles from the coast of Turkey. And there, the average lifespan is 90 plus, which is the highest in the world. And the question was, why these people live so long? Because the answer is, The islanders live and bath in an environment high in radon and radium. Sokolov first reported on pain relief in patients with arthritis using X-rays. External beam X-rays were used in 1899 for successful treatment of superficial tumors. 1911, Pussy described cell stimulation and the successful treatment of some chronic inflammatory condition. During the 1930s, wide variety of inflammatory infectious diseases were successfully treated by X-ray and radium gamma rays in the dose of 0.5 to 2 gray to see. Simple calculations show little or no morbidity and annual saving of millions of lives in the world if low dose radiation is given. Asthma used to be effectively treated in 1926 by ionizing radiation. List of diseases which can be cured by low dose radiation include arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, neuralgia, spondylitis, bursitis, osteoporosis, asthma, diabetes, hypertension, hepatitis, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and allergy and arterial eczema. High radiation doses used to be given to control bone pain from cancer. 8 gray used to be given. And nerve pain from tic douloureux or trigeminal neuralgia. Prior to Second World War, X-rays to given to treat a variety of infections. There was 66% decrease in the death rate from infection and parasitic disease for exposed workers at the Savannah River plant when compared to unexposed controls in the same area. Over 115 years ago, physicians used to give X-rays to treat infections associated with gas gangrene, pneumonia, bronchitis, tuberculosis. You name any diseases, it is there. Before the Second World War, they were all treated by radiation. Even fluid injected cholera, tuberculosis, diphtheria, typhus microorganisms in 5 cc saline under the skin of both ears of rabbits found that the ear exposed to uranium rays had no inflammation. Lutted showed the attenuation of tuberculosis infection by Roentgen rays in guinea pigs. X-rays were used to treat impaired hearing loss related to throat inflammation and lymphoid tissue growth in nasopharynx. X-ray therapy was used successfully to treat bacterial pneumonia during the first half of the 20th century. Periodontal disease caused mostly by inflammation and ulceration of the gingiva tissues from anaerobic bacteria used to be successfully treated by low-dose radiation. 10 cumulative gray used to be given. Low-dose radiation accelerates wound healing by up to 50% based on X-ray therapy. Low-dose radiation stimulates the immune system, which can destroy pre-cancer cells, cancer cells, and tumor metastasis. There is every indication that low-dose radiation can successfully treat even HIV/AIDS. Mice who is given this low-dose radiation, 1.5 milligram for 5 to 12 days. Even the frail virus, which is typically HIV/AIDS virus, is to get cured. And those who are not given, they all found to die within 40 days. Mice infected with the retrovirus family member, which is frail leukemia virus, which also includes HIV-1, are protected by radiation-induced adaptation in human cells, immune cells. There is strong evidence that HIV/AIDS could be successfully treated by low-dose radiation. Del Regato initiated human trials which indicated that whole body radiation may be beneficial in treating AIDS. Today we are fighting how to treat AIDS. Even cardiovascular disease. Typical cardiac patient exposure is similar to taking 50 chest X-rays per person per year. Most dose is from CT, coronary intervention, cardiac electrophysiology, and nuclear cardiology. This is all, if added, it's almost equivalent to 750 chest X-rays. There is a very fear that the staff who is working on this, whether they are developing cancer. It was found that even with a cumulative dose of 46 milligrams in this, they received this type of cardiovascular disease never happened in the workers. So there is a good way to reduce heart damage, to give a low conditioning dose of 150 milligrams a day. This was also known. Low dose cumulative radiation up to 500 milligrams appear to be safe for kidney, cardiovascular system, abnormal lipid profiles, and diabetes. There was no statistically significant effects of cardiovascular disease in humans at cumulative dose of up to 500 milligrams at a dose of 10 milligrams per day. Diabetic mice giving total body 15 milligrams every other day, 4 weeks, different dose rates were also known. Whole body low dose radiation up to 12.5 milligrams every other day for 8 weeks appeared to the optimal schedule and dose for protecting kidney from the effects of diabetes. And believe it or not, there are more than 100 journal papers by Chinese alone what are the beneficial effects of the low dose radiation. These are all what I am speaking. Just go to Google, type it, everything will come out. Even the medical workers, especially radiotherapists, or you can say the people who are dealing with X-rays, and so there was a big question that what happened to them. Until 1950, the doctors and the medical staff, especially those radiologic technologists, what you say, they used to be exposed to a huge radiation, 30,000 millisievert per year, and they were losing their lives. And then 1920, this dose limit was reduced from 30,000 to 500 millisievert per year. And after that, the death rates, the cancer incidence of these doctors and medical staff are reduced significantly. So when I say there are hundreds of such stories, I was talking for the last 30 minutes, the radiation, especially low dose radiation of 200 millisievert, so much beneficial for human health. You name any disease, it is to be cured before the Second World War by giving X-rays or gamma rays. The biggest question is why people are radiation. Correct? इतना बढ़िया story आपको बताया. The reason answer is straight. When people think about nuclear, they don't think about electricity, medicine, food, or cure of innumerable diseases, including increase of the lifespan, due direct or indirect application of radiation. They only think about Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and so on. The public's association of cancer with radiation is the leading problem. The public paradigm that nuclear radiation is carcinogenic is a more political, scientific misinterpretation and cherry picking than the actual science. In particular, during the Cold War period, those 5 nations who had developed the atomic weapon, they started creating the fear of radiation as an effective weapon, and that has really made a collateral damage to the society and the fear about radiation. And the root cause is there is a scientific theory called linear growth threshold theory, LNT theory. What does it mean? That biological damage is proportional to the radiation dose. Means, if you are having 0 dose, you will never get cancer. As the dose increases, the possibility of getting cancer and dying increases linearly. there is no threshold. Zero is the threshold. Anything above zero, you are likely to get cancer and die. And this is probably the most misrepresented science presented as a fact despite several hundreds of facts against that. Who is the man who created this and why he created it? After the discovery of X-ray induced mutation, two scientists, Olson and Lewis, proposed that cosmic or terrestrial induced radiation also can cause mutations. And for this concept to be general, he developed a theoretical linear no threshold dose relations. A few years later, is the man behind all this. He suggested the same relationship also for ionizing radiation. And the LNP concept was like generalized even to chemical carcinogenic risk assessment used by public health and regulatory authorities. This is what he represented. The y-axis report as the excess relative risk of solid cancer, and x-axis is the radiation dose. This is the data of the Japanese survivor people who were exposed to radiation. And what he did, those data which were falling, especially low dose data, I put in the ground, where the risk was below zero, he omitted. And those data which were falling outside the straight line, he also removed. Like all of you are science students, when you try to plot graphs, if the professor says it has to follow a straight line, what we do, we remove those data, but they may be science. Deliberately we remove, make a perfect straight line. Y is equal to mx plus c, correct? Same thing. And what is the data? The data is here. This is called the data. You omitted all this. Up to 0.2 gray, you see. 0.2 gray means 200 millisievert. Below 200 millisievert, the risk was negative. This is the actual true Japanese data. He did not show here. And the risk was negative means Japanese life was longer, were exposed to this radiation, and the risk of developing cancer and death was lesser as compared to normal Japanese unexposed people. This he omitted. And the excess relative risk means the rate of radiation-induced disease in an exposed radiation to that of unexposed radiation. So, because he omitted all this data, which public did not know that time. So this part was later on discussed globally, that whether this LNT concept for ionizing radiation is correct or wrong. There are many who did not support because deliberately they had removed a lot of data. But Muller and other leaders of radiation genetics community became strong advocates of this model. Because they started spreading, even though risk today is negative, these guys may 20 years, 50 years down the line, they will develop cancer because they are exposed to radiation today. So what's difficult that time? The scientific community may be thinking, oh, he may be correct. Today these guys don't have the radiation for cancer. Maybe 50 years down the line, they will develop such problems. The US National Academy of Science Year 1 Committee Genetic Panel recommended this model. Why I know that model? Which all governments and regulatory bodies worldwide accept, except France. France doesn't accept this model. That's why in France you find nuclear reactors next to the highways. There's nothing called a boundary in a nuclear power plant,
And France produces today 75% of the electricity from nuclear. The National Academy of Science generally thus committed scientific misconduct by publishing in the journal Science its doctoral estimates of human genetic risk to radiation exposure. Other advocates of the LNT theory also believed on this falsified data, thinking that the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki may develop cancer later. Then the dose limit, which was very high before, this was dragged to zero and said linear no threshold theory is the applicable model for radiation risk to cancer. What does this model mean? If you are a science student, for example, you are sitting in this room, if I say this building structure will deform at every wind velocity, how many will you accept? None of you will accept. Why? Because you all know within the elastic limit, whatever deformation happens, it comes back to its original condition. Only while it crosses the elastic limit, then only I'm sure there is a deformation which is happening to any structure. Same thing happens to the human genetics. Every dose will cause a cancer is a ridiculous thing. That's definitely threshold. Beyond that, genetically, a cell is going to deform. So this is one very important thing which is missed. Once Paracelsus, a physician and botanist, famously said, poison is in everything, and nothing is without poison. And the dose of the poison makes it a poison or a medicine. Muller received Nobel Prize in 1946 for showing the mutation, because for this to prove what he did a lot of experiments at very high dose, almost 1,000 to 4,000 R in fruit flies, and studied their mutations. And 1,000 to 4,000 R is roughly 2 lakh times more than the background radiation. He intensely put so much radiation on the fruit flies and showed that the mutations happening in the fruit flies. And then he said that fruit flies mutation can happen at any radiation and zero is its threshold. Few years down the line, Hot Stern found that there is a dose limit called 50 R or 500 milligrams, below which no mutation is found. In this process, Muller ignored and withheld the data, showed he was wrong. Muller knew prior to his Nobel Prize that these scientists, Kaspari and Stern and Oppam and Stern, had demonstrated that there is a threshold limit called 50 R for the mutations in fruit flies. Even there were discoveries which said that if the dose is even 140,000 R, flower beetles, mosquitoes, crickets, curdling moth, then sessile fly, house fly, fruit flies, all experienced enhanced life of up to 20 to 60%. Exposure at egg and larva levels increased longevity in insects. More recent studies in fruit flies have shown that X-ray and gamma rays as low as 200 milligrams to X significantly increase adult file quality. So what was Muller's deception? There is a foundation called Rockefeller Foundation, a man who is the richest guy in the world, which is the basically oil foundation, oil company. When this fission energy was discovered, especially after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the first fear came to the oil industry that atom has so much of energy. And if the atomic energy comes, definitely the first oil is going to be wiped out. And then the richest guy was the Rockefeller Foundation, who sponsored Muller flight studies. In fact, he awarded him grants of $991,000 for genetic studies. Muller's actions was incredibly important because the world came to believe that if mutagenesis from ionizing radiation is true for fruit flies, it can happen also with human beings. Muller made deceptive statements in an attempt to promote the acceptance of his theory for risk assessment from ionizing radiation. Muller also wanted to exaggerate the health risk from low-level radiation because he was opposed to atomic bombs or atomic weapon tests. There are many studies here, I will show that. What was the impact of this theory? Every regulatory body, including India, other than France, which I said, they adopted the regulation based on the linear no threshold theory. That is why when you enter into an X-ray room, the doctor puts a red light. Why? Because you are going to be exposed to ionizing radiation. There is no threshold. Any threshold you may get cancer. And this is the regulatory policy globally, etc. The linear no threshold doesn't address the low dose radiation pharmacies. Only gives a mathematical treatment with the assumption that low dose ionizing radiation has proportionately health effects due to cancer that costs enormous resources of money and may cause the quality of collective lives. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines phobia as an exaggerated, inexplicable, and illogical fear. The result of fear is anxiety and avoidance. The LNT has a wide-ranging impact on radiology, nuclear power, dirty bombs, nuclear waste disposal, food irradiation, home radar, diagnostic and nuclear medicine. The societal cost of the radiophobia is really mind-boggling. It's much more than what radiation or cancer can cause problem in the society. The cost of the implementation and carrying out radiation regulation really doesn't improve the health of the society, correct? Because you are being forbidden to harness the benefit of low dose radiation. Probably your life would have been benefited, diseases would have been saved, lives would have gone out, and it was all stopped by these implications of this murder. So that has caused indirectly loss of several thousands of lives. As I said, the Standard Oil Company was founded by this foundation, John Rockefeller, in 1870, who later established the Rockefeller Foundation, 1913. The oil industry, as I said, realized the massive energy density of atom. The Republican Party of America had a close relationship with this industry, the Rockefeller Foundation. And President Eisenhower, he appointed a committee to establish what's the impact of radiation. And Muller had close ties with this foundation. In 1954, the foundation chose to finance a large project to evaluate the effects of radiation. The foundation asked US National Academy of Science to organize the program, which was conducted under the auspices of NS President Brown of Rockefeller University, also an RF trustee. The genetic panel of the National Academy of Science, Biological Effects of Atomic Radiation, Year Committee, was established in 1954, and it was chaired by Weber, a mathematician, not by a scientist. And Muller was also a member of that committee. The chairman was a mathematician. Muller was a member. Funding was by the foundation, and it was backed by Eisenhower, the American president. There was no discussion. The committee or the panel recommended this theory, LNT, on June 12, 1956. The limit dose to the nuclear workers was 500 milligrams. it was abolished to zero. Next day, in the front page of the New York Times, owned by the same trustee, it was published that radiation is dangerous. Other media followed the suit. Then the ICR was the International Commission for Radiation Protection. And based on this, the dose limits were put to the nuclear workers and the public. And the public, the dose limit was 1 millisievert per year. It's the maximum limit it should be exposed in a year. And to put this limit in a nuclear power plant, we have to put one barrier, another barrier, another barrier, another barrier, to show that the dose is microsievert, not in millisievert. And who pays the money? The public. The cost of electricity goes up and health also goes down. And this is what has come out. This is what I said, over heart CT scan, you get 16 millisievert, full body CT scan, 10 millisievert, abdominal X-ray, 4 to 5 millisievert, spinal X-ray, 2 millisievert, chest X-ray, dental X-rays are very small. Still the doctor puts a red line. And if you live in a nuclear power plant, you get a microsievert, not a millisievert. And who has done that? So the biggest question is, and putting the reverse, are we radiation deficit today? Many years back, the human beings used to live in forests with animals and plants. And once there was fire in the forest, the animals and birds ran away. The human beings felt the heat of the fire. And they used the heat of the fire in civilization started. So today you have come to a situation where the intense energy of the atom has been used for the civilization, for your own development, transforming India from the developed status, as well as protecting the earth against the climate. Choice is yours, floor is yours, my lecture ends here.